Do you enjoy exploiting the environment, or having the environment exploit you? Throw in tax evasion, cosmic hellfire, along with road spaghetti, and you get Cities Skylines. A game where you can simultaneously dump sewage into lakes while forcing your citizens to drink it. Because our goal today is to make a thriving metropolis crammed with 100,000 people. Using only the most ethical city building, we were about to take death and taxes to a whole new level. At the start of the game, we were introduced to our new plot of land. We placed our first roads and zoned our very first residential and commercial areas. These green zones are for residential land, so people will start building houses there. The blue is for commercial, so stores and shops. And yellow represents industry. Progress. And lung cancer. On top of zoning areas, we needed to give people amenities. This included pumping water from the river and dumping crap in the river, alongside a wind turbine for environmental power. And, money. Before long, we leveled our town into a hamlet. This gave us healthcare, education, and garbage, none of which I cared about. For the whole city, one clinic. And for education, a single elementary school, making our children slightly less illiterate than the rest of the population. As our population expanded, we leveled up into a worthy village. Worthy of what, you might ask? Getting shot. With our massive 1% crime rate, we threw down our first police station and firefighters. We zoned more shops, increased people production, and leveled again into a tiny town. With this, we'd unlocked real profit generation. The magic of industry specialization. In City Skylines, maps aren't just all grass and water. Within the area, there are various natural resources like farmland, trees, oil, and ore, all of which we can specialize our industry to use. To make the big bucks, well, it should be obvious. Across the river were tons of precious metals, so that was our next goal. Besides polluting the environment, we just reached an important milestone, our very first dead body. Naturally, we'd need somewhere to bury them, so we gave them a cemetery in prime real estate. Back to our current goal, to extract ore, we need to expand our city across the river. To do that, we could actually buy more land to increase our building space. We purchased the river area to get closer to where the ore was located, but our expansion gave way to a special mechanic in the game: environmental disasters. In the game, there's always a chance of random disasters occurring. These can range up from Category 5 tornadoes down to city-crushing tsunamis. And in our case, a giant meteor, which cozied up right next to our industry. I can confidently say nobody of value was hurt. Now, this one wasn't too bad, but imagine if it had crashed somewhere important, like where all the rich people lived. And this wasn't the first we'd see of random disasters either. After cleaning up the aftermath, our income took a bit of a hit. As an American city, there was naturally only one solution: go $60,000 into debt and invest all the money into essential oils and cool rocks. By finally starting to mine ore, we'd be able to export goods for money. As we mined more ore, we'd also gain access to more methods of profit generation. This coincided with leveling up into a busy town with a population of 3,600. Now, if our goal is to have 100,000 citizens, we'd barely made a dent. But the march of progress is inexorable. Later down the line, we get more tools to grow our population. And with only minor human rights violations, the game also has its own version of Twitter at the top. What a great city. I would think I'm dreaming if I didn't know otherwise. Don't worry, Jeremy. We'll fix that. Regardless, in the meantime, we kept growing our city out because we need one more level up to get going. We also dealt with our carbon footprint by making it bigger. Our industry grew, residential expanded, and we finally got enough money to switch to superior power generation, which meant more coal. We were beginning to look like a real city now that we were $80,000 in debt, which also pushed us right over the edge into becoming a big town, gaining access to the most powerful tool in our arsenal: high-density housing. This whole time, we've been using low-density residential housing, but now we had high density, so we could cram thousands of people into tight spaces and make them pay for it. And we conveniently had space right next to our parks. We tore up the mall and turned it into a new city area. Unfortunately, it was far from pretty much all of our amenities, so sucks to suck. Just in time as well did we level up our ore mining. Now we could refine sand into glass and produce industrial steel. We could also build an ore industry workers barracks, marking our transition from somewhat happy city to apparently Carnegie Steel Mill. With our excavations accelerating, this gave us the money to invest in a brighter future. Literally. By the time we built more ore, our new high-density residential areas finished. And with them, traffic, which was becoming an ever so slight problem. I tried my best to fix it, which worked. Not really. I also placed a bus depot to start using public transportation to hopefully help us out. Despite our improvements, the city still had a long way to go. We expanded our police force because crime in our industrial area had started to get high, especially since people were robbing the box factory, moving back to the city at large, we were running out of space on our main plot of land. To that end, our plan was to establish a new city across the river, and ultimately the unholy abomination that would house over 100,000 people. Before we were able to start building our mega city, we'd have to account for the massive population increase. Number one of this was building a separate industrial area far away from our residential. In the game, industrial buildings ship their goods to commercial zones and shops. That also means we need to be careful about where we place them. One mistake and we turn our highways into parking lots. I purchased a new plot of land across the river and started planning for the new city. Now, this is where things get complicated and require thinking, something that you know we don't do on this channel. Now, because I have the liberty of looking back on what I was doing, let me tell you something. This whole setup right here is going to cause more casualties than the dictator of a small country, even though right now it looks fine. But oh boy, it's not. In the meantime, I was experimenting around with a new method of power generation. By building a massive hydro dam, we generate an insane amount of power. And surely blocking off a massive river wouldn't cause any issues to our city, right? It was also now that I discovered our people were aliens. See all these houses? Yeah. There are no roads. The Chestnut residence is concerned about the high crime rate, and I mean, I am too, because there's no one on the island. To connect our cities together, we'd need a lot more money to build a highway. I could afford one road so people could go in. Getting out required a bit more creativity. We needed the highway badly because our factories required more human sustenance. We got the money to finish the highway, then level up into a big city. With a population of 13,000, our numbers were quickly growing. Now, there were some minor issues, such as dead bodies piling up. The solution? Ignorance. And more ore mining, which worked because we leveled up again, giving us advanced solar plants, i.e. expensive paperweights. Speaking of paper, we also had a devastating forest fire. Warning, there's a forest fire raging. That's the forest fire. It's right here. What do you mean by raging? The tree that was on fire didn't even burn down. But on the topic of crises, death. The corpse problem had somehow migrated itself to the rich people, so now I had to care about it. In the midst of the crisis, I'm sure my people were enthused to hear how I spared no expense on a new steel factory and a giant fence to keep my ore safe. But the moment some kid climbs over it and breaks his leg, I'll be there, laughing. Coming back to the city, the traffic problem was getting even worse. With traffic backing up the entire city, garbage wasn't getting collected. Garbage meant citizens were getting sick. Sick people meant dead people. And dead people meant, well, a lot of problems. With things looking dire, we were steadily teetering to the brink of calamity and with no end in sight. In their current condition, things did not look good. The abundance of corpses was so great that crime was skyrocketing even at the cemetery. We needed to turn everything around and as soon as possible. We had buses, but we could go further. Metro stations, intercity coaches, railroads, the entire city's transportation system had to be upended. Slowly but surely, the death rate slowed, amenities worked, and for once, people were actually alive. Now, as much as it would have been nice to enjoy our success, it was pretty hard to see it from atop a mountain of debt. We were over 300K in the hole and had our loans maxed. From this point forward, there wouldn't be any more bailouts. While the road to recovery would be long, things were looking up. The influx of people meant more tax dollars, and with it, a new form of power generation. One massive hydro dam to power the entire city for the small fee of $220,000. We made the investment and watched the electricity roll in. Or not. It's not working, guys. Surely that's not because the water is just, going the other way. Even better, that massive water pollution went right upstream to our water pumps. So did I just spend $300,000 on a useless concrete wall that accidentally poisoned my citizens? No, that was the other mayor. And counter-argument, money. We were making more cash than we knew what to do with. Now, look, guys. Hear me out. I know the whole damming the river for power thing didn't work out and cost us nearly $250,000, but what if we did it again? Okay, but what if we gave it one more? Okay. In somehow even less good news, we got a call from Mother Nature, which ripped a tornado through our main city and destroyed dozens of buildings. By the end of it, we'd lost 700 citizens. Now, was this a tragedy or what? What? See, the tornado also freed up space for us to expand our highways to allow faster commercial transportation. As they say, a soul for a soul. Or in my case, many souls for No soul. To those affected, I knew what I needed to do to prevent future disasters from making so many bodies. I built 8 crematoriums. Now that we'd stabilized the city, we leveled up once again into a colossal city. At 42,000 people, we were rapidly approaching our goal of 100,000 citizens. We purchased a new plot of land, expanded our central highway, and sped our way through manifesting our destiny. Everything was lining up for the grand city, and as I took a second to take in everything we'd achieved, disaster. Our citizens had relapsed on the most addictive substance known to man, apparently human waste. Our money situation was spiraling into the red, and loans weren't an option because we'd maxed them. Plus, most of our spent money was going into collecting trash, and if we stopped spending on that, you know what happens. There was one way out though, even if it was a little controversial, such as maxing all taxes and forcing our citizens to live in poverty. Rich, poor, middle class, everyone's equal at gunpoint. We stacked up more than 400K before lowering the tax rate back down. But even with near unlimited money, my incompetence was showing. Small roads were blocking services from doing their jobs, leading to consequences, and that was ignoring the 10,000 bodies we'd buried into the city, which wasn't even counting all the ash in our crematoriums. The highways were causing noise pollution, and we were spending way too much on garbage. And even if we could fix all that, yeah. With everything coming down around us, it was pretty clear that 100,000 taxpayers was not in our future. I think we've learned a valuable lesson here. Never let me be a city planner. That, and I'm holding everyone's tax money hostage until they subscribe. Thanks for watching. See ya.